I'm really just stepping back into my power of like, no, this is my reality. There's so much more to this world than what we can physically see. Like, animals already know this. Plants, nature, they all feel this energy that's around us. And I think we all have the power to tap into that. It's only how much resistance we have to it.
Hi, and welcome back to the Natalie Rustic podcast. Today's guest is Sandra Robbins. I'm very humbled and blessed to be able to have her as a guest today because she has not yet shared her near death experience, apart from a few friends and family members. Today, Sandra shares with us her near death experience. She went cliff diving with a few friends, and the story she is about to tell you is quite remarkable. And so, without further ado, I welcome you, Sandra Robbins.
Yeah, I just wanted to start and say hi. Thank you so much for having me on and doing this important, soulful work. I came across your page, I'm not sure how, but it was very aligned timing. I just watched this amazing Netflix documentary um, about near-death experiences one day, and I was just so captivated. And then I started going down the YouTube rabbit hole of near-death experiences, and hearing other people's stories just really inspired me to want to share my own. It's been something I've kind of kept to myself for, I think this was 2017 when it happened, and I honestly just didn't have the words to share it or voice it. I didn't have the confidence because it's so crazy, these types of
Yeah.
things, like only when you experience it, then you will experience it. um, but yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you. I'm really excited to finally share my story. And as I mentioned a bit earlier, it really helped a friend of mine when I shared my experience, my near death experience this year with him. He lost a friend due to a drowning accident. And so, me sharing my experience kind of helped to bring him a little bit of peace because, yeah, I think a lot of people are really scared of death and have this big fear around it. And that's totally fair. I did as well until this happened to me. And now it changed my whole perspective around death. And I think
Yeah.
it's just such a beautiful, peaceful experience. Yeah, as well, I lost my grandfather this past year, and I was just really thankful for my own experience because I truly believe that when we die, we have the choice to leave, and we have to kind of confirm and give permission to leave our body. I don't think that's just, yeah, my my experience. So I think it's a really
Yeah.
peaceful thing, and I think it's really important to share. But yeah, I guess I'll dive in. This was back in 2017. A girlfriend of mine, we went to Lynn Canyon, so that's in BC. It's this gorgeous park in North Vancouver, and a lot of people like to go cliff diving there. So I remember her and I, we were just kind of rebellious and so excited, and we'd go out on all these like nature adventures so often. And we saw this YouTube video of these guys going down this natural water slide. So I looked at her and she looked at me, and we're like, yeah, we're going to do that. That looks so fun. Like, and seeing it on YouTube as well, like these guys, they made it out. They were just doing backflips and having the most amazing, exhilarating time. So, yeah, we didn't really have that little radar of, this could be dangerous go off in our minds. And so off we went, and there's a lot of trails through Lynn Canyon. And to get to the waterfall area, you actually have to jump two fences, and you have to jump a giant sign that says, like, do not enter.
Yeah.
And so we're like, oh no. And we kind of just, didn't listen. And we went over both the fences. And yeah, we got to the little area where hard to kind of describe, but there's like a little bit of a river going towards the big waterfall. And then the waterfall drops off, and then it's like a giant pool of water at the bottom. After that, there's like a 60-foot cliff and then a
Wow.
bridge. Yeah. So I remember just um, kind of taking it all in and being like, wow, okay. And my friend, she was like, you go first. And I was like, okay. Like, I always love to go first because it doesn't really give me time to think or get scared. So I was like, I'm going to do it. It's going to be so fun. And I got to um, kind of where there's like a natural water slide, sorry. I got to the edge of it and I perched up on my back feet and I put my hands down and I was just feeling the water and I kind of took a breath and something in me, it was just a whole body strong no feeling. I don't know if you've ever had that where you're just like about to do something and your body is like, F this, no way.
Yeah.
So that kind of came over me. And as I went to turn around, I kind of lifted like my right hand off the edge there. I went to turn around, but the water, powerful, of course, pushed me. So I just went down the water slide unprepared, and I turned. My body kind of went sideways. I remember I was like upside down. I think I hit the back of my head. And then as I dropped off the waterfall, I swallowed all this water. And it was just very like instant, really fast, really scary. And yeah, even talking about it, I'm like, whoa. um, but then I was under the water and I was really confused. Still shocked, didn't really know which way was up or which way was down. So I guess when I fell, I don't know how I fell, like upside down or something. But I remember I was like choking and eventually I was trying to swim which way I thought was up. So I was pushing up and I was just like kind of like, oh my God, oh my God. And I was really struggling under the water for probably, my friend said, about maybe a minute and a half or so.
Wow.
Quite some time when you're not prepared to be under there. And yeah, I just remember like the force of the water was so powerful and like pushing me down further. And I just kind of like had this moment where I was like, holy F, like I'm going to die. And I just remember thinking that I was like, this is it. I'm going to die. Like, um, also shout out to my mom if she's watching this. She actually told me not to go that day. So, a mother's intuition is always right.
Yeah.
Um, and I just thought of my mom and I was like, oh my God, she's going to be so disappointed, like da da da. And then um, I was just like, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And then I kind of like just let go. And it was almost as if it wasn't my voice, but someone else, something else telling me like so clearly, you can let go, you can die. It's okay, it's safe. And I just felt so much peace. And I was like, yep, like that's great. And then the voice also said, but you can choose to live. So I had kind of two options. And it felt like this was like time didn't exist anymore during this conversation or whatever was going on. And it felt like I don't really recall if I was still like trying to swim or struggling or if I was just floating there, but in my mind, in my memory, I felt like I was just kind of floating in the abyss of water and like making this big decision. Um, but I remember the voice giving me the option like you can die, you can let go, it's completely safe, or you can live. And I thought of the living option, and then memories of my little brother just like flashed through my mind. I hear a lot of people say like their own life flashes before their eyes, or they have kind of like a movie play out, but I had that of my little brother, like just watching him as like a baby and memories of me holding him. And then um, this is so funny, I never told him this either. But
Oh.
yeah, I just had like just a memory and such strong love to like be there for him and come back for him. And I just thought of him the whole time. And up until like, from him being a baby up until present moment at the time. And it just really brought me so much love. And I was like, okay, I'm going to live. I like that option. I'm going to see him again. It's going to be great. And then this is where it gets super trippy. So um, this is kind of why I didn't want to tell people for so long, because it's just unexplainable. It doesn't make sense. It's one of those things that like I just thought people would write me off as crazy for so long. But this year I'm really embracing the crazy and I'm really loving it and enjoying it. It's just so funny when we start to allow these like supernatural things, the more clear the messages become. And it's just so beautiful how we can really tap into being guided throughout life. And at the time, this was a huge wake up call and transformation for me in my personal life after this. But anyway, I had, those two options come. I chose to live, saw the movie of my brother, and then um, as soon as I chose that, I saw right next to me, like, this is so creepy. I saw a face in the water. And the only way I can describe it is kind of like it was like a glowing, transparent face almost, made up of water. Like it was a
Wow.
face in the water. It's hard to put into words because it really isn't something that truly exists. But I just saw eyes, and they looked through me, through my soul, and then they like, stared me down and they moved to the right. And I just, something in me, I like looked at it and I swam to the right. And as soon as I swam to the right, my body kind of floated up. And then it
Wow.
was, so I guess what I was originally doing, which is not smart if you ever fall off a waterfall, hopefully no one does, I kept trying to swim against the water that was pushing me down. And so obviously that is not going to help. So then eventually I swam to the right and I just floated up naturally. And I remember I got up and I was like choking and it was just a big mess. And my friend was up at the top, like screaming. She's like, oh my God. And everyone's kind of like, holy F, I couldn't imagine being them either. It's really scary. And then the only way to get kind of out of there is you have to climb along the edge and either you drop down 60 feet, I think it's about, um, or you climb up, like rock climb.
Yeah.
And I think I was probably out of the water for at least an hour and I was just, in such shock and trying to figure out like what happened, catch my breath. I was like throwing up, it was gross. And my friend, she climbed down to meet me and then we were kind of faced with this option like, okay, now we're really stuck and we're stranded. We don't have our phones. I don't know where the other people went. And there was like the ultimatum, do we jump? Do we cliff jump? And my whole body again said no. And I was like, dude, no way. I just experienced like I already went through this. I'm not going to jump. And she was kind of like, we can do it. We can jump. And I was like, no, like the water down there is really dark as well. And I think I was sitting on the edge just looking down for probably, I don't know, forever, maybe another hour. And I was just like shivering. I was like, I'm going to wait here until someone comes and rescues us and finds us.
Yeah.
Um, and Something kind of unrelated, but this other girl, she came up behind us and she's like, are you guys going to jump? And we're like, no. And she's like, oh, I'm going to go. Like, it's fine. And I was like, don't do it. Like, do not do it. And she jumped off the edge and it was so terrifying. I guess way down there, there was like her boyfriend and their friends too. She jumped off the edge and he ran to her. All you hear is this like shrieking voice. And I guess he ended up going into the water, picked her up, and she broke her foot. Like her foot
Oh.
it was just, yeah. And so the whole energy around this whole situation was like, these waters are so powerful and it's not something to be taken lightly. Cliff jumping can seem really fun, but it's also very, very dangerous. And then, yeah, my friend and I, we ended up rock climbing. Like, I don't know how we got the strength or the will, but it was kind of our only option. So we ended up like rock climbing all the way up back onto trail. And yeah, after that, we met with the park rangers. We had our bags stolen. It was just a whole ordeal. I went to the hospital. It was just like, oh my gosh. And I remember being questioned, and they were kind of just like, what do you guys do? And um, luckily, somehow too, when I think back, I'm like, it was pretty wild. Like I swallowed a lot of water and I was underwater for some time. I remember I came up and I was like throwing up water and just like catching my breath. But at the hospital, they're like, you're okay. Like I had all these scrapes and stuff, but they're like, you're okay. You might have a light concussion. Um, I remember the days after, I was just mostly like confused. I remember just thinking like, how did I survive that? But I also remember feeling fine and like going back to work, like nothing happened, and
Wow.
having a lot of energy and being totally okay. Um, but yeah, it was just like a crazy experience. And then yeah, I didn't really want to share with anyone. I was like, oh, how'd you get out of the water? How'd you know which way to go? I was like, oh yeah, I just figured it out. Like I didn't tell anyone what I saw, who I saw, what I was thinking, what kind of options were given to me. Um, but then I had a really, really close spiritual friend named Amanda who was living with me at the time, and this was about a year later. And we decided to go back to that trail because I told her like that's one of her favorite places to go hiking. And I shared with her a little bit. I said, oh, I had a very traumatic experience there. I don't want to go there. Like, um, no, no, no. But she kind of opened me up to the idea that revisiting the space could be really healing. And so I was like, okay, if we go together. But I remember going back there a year later, and it was such a deep, magical experience. Like I have shivers. Just it was just so one of those days where everything's working out. You're seeing all the angel numbers. Like everything just seems so beautiful, and it was really trippy. We walked on the trail, and kind of to get to the trail, there's a little bridge, and this time they had a giant sign on the bridge, which they didn't have before. And the sign, I think it's still there. It has a bunch of X's, and it's like a map, and it has a bunch of X's and like skulls where people have died. Um,
Wow.
and I think, I don't know the for sure facts, but I think there's at least over 10 people that have died there cliff diving. And I remember I saw that sign and I was like, oh my gosh. And then we went and we were like meditating in the forest. It was really beautiful. And I had that exact image of whatever spirit I saw that day. And I have shivers. And it was like so clear to me in that moment. I was like, oh my gosh, someone who died there, like saved my life. Like someone's soul is guarding the waters there. And it just came like a download, like so clearly, like that's that's what that was. And that made sense in that moment. And I was like, oh my gosh. And we kind of went back, and we didn't jump the fence again or anything, but I just sat there and I just prayed. I said, wow, thank you so much. Like, and I was just talking to the spirit that was there, and I was like, you really saved my life. You really protected me. And then after, I remember we saw like a bunch of birds just like flew up from behind us when we were like meditating in the forest. They just flew up from behind us and flew over us. And then there was two trees, kind of broken trees, like fallen on each other in the sign of an X. And I was
Wow.
like, oh my gosh, is this a sign or something? Um, but yeah, ever since that day, like having that confirmation, it just felt like clear confirmation that someone's really, watching over people there. And I just felt so protected and so full of love and so light after that experience. And yeah, like it's just so relieving to go about life not fearing death.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not trying to, you know, race to the finish line or end anytime soon, but I just feel so relaxed knowing that, when we die, I feel it's going to be our choice. We're going to feel safe. We're going to feel loved. And I didn't get to the other side and back like some guests that you've had on your podcast I've watched. I think that's really cool. But I kind of just was, yeah, given the option And I thought that was really, really important and really
Can I
special.
just say a huge thank you for sharing your story with me for the first time? I think that is so
Yeah.
incredible. So
Yeah,
thank
thank you.
you. And I also wanted to ask you, how has this experience changed you as a person? Because before this accident, were you ever spiritual? Did you, do any spiritual practices, or has this created that in you now? Because I sense that about you. I feel like you have a very deep spiritual aura about you.
Aw, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's an amazing question. So, I was reflecting on this earlier today too, and yeah, I would say that year 2017, I was, really stepping into manifestation and kind of diving more into the spiritual world. I'd say I was always really open-minded, but I wouldn't have described myself as like fully invested or fully like in belief until that year. So I think it was kind of a little bit before the accident. I was, waking up to it a bit more. My entire life, though, just I've like been able to communicate with like angels and spirits, and um, yeah, only recently, last few years, I've really been inviting more of that in and being more open to sharing that. And
Yeah.
the more I share it, the more clear messages and like crazy things happen. So yeah, I just feel really grateful to share on your platform as well. And hopefully this can, yeah, help inspire others, help relieve others, and
Yeah.
um,
I mean, I
yeah.
particularly like the fact that you said a friend of yours drowned and that you wanted to share your story because it might help others. And that is the
Yeah.
same reason to why I'm actually doing this podcast, is because so many
Oh.
people out there, are struggling, or even near-death experiences like yourself, don't know how they can talk to it, like what's their outlet. And so I really enjoy doing this podcast for people like you to be able to express your story.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm really thankful that you're here. Um, I would love to ask you about your angels and your guides. So could you give us a bit of backstory about how you first realized you were communicating with them?
Yeah, actually, this is about maybe 2 years ago. I moved into this like beautiful house with beautiful people, and I was just meditating one day in my room, and I've always believed in angels, but I've never harnessed their power or tried to communicate with them. For so long, I was trying to find the name of my spirit guide, or really like, I was like, I just want it to be so clear to me. And then, yeah, I was meditating in my room, and we just moved in. I had like no furniture. My room was pretty empty, and I was just kind of looking around, and I just had this like realization or download, like my angels are with me, and it was kind of just a knowing.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, I was like, okay, maybe I'll try talking to my angels instead of my spirit guides, which I really think it's all the same thing. And so I was, yeah, just started that daily practice, including addressing my angels into my meditation. Usually I'll kind of start my meditation with like, hey universe, thank you, blah 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 blah. But I've started being like, hey angels, blah blah blah, whatever I need to say. And then my grandpa passed away last year in February, and this is a whole other like side story. But him and I didn't really have the best relationship. Growing up, I didn't really enjoy his company. He probably had the same to say about me. We were very, very different people. Um, but he was the first real death I ever truly experienced, like close person to me. And it kind of caught me off guard. And I just remember like feeling so much unconditional love for the very, very first time. Whereas it's hilarious because previously to him, when he was like, alive on earth, I really felt hate towards him. He's probably one of the only people that I've ever felt so strongly hate towards. And now that's so silly, because now I feel closer to him than ever, and I feel so much love. I feel so much connection, so much support. And I remember, yeah, I would just ask him questions and start talking to him and communicating, and I'll get such clear signs. It'll just be so obvious it's a message from him. Or I would ask for guidance, and it would just be like, it would just be so, so clear. And yeah, that was only a year ago. Pardon me. Ever since then, I talk to him like daily, all the time. Um, and it's kind of like we have a little joke at home. If someone loses something, I have like this like new skill that's only come since like my grandpa's passed away. If someone loses an item like their phone or their keys, I will literally just like breathe and like imagine where their item is, and I'll ask the angels or like my grandpa, and we'll find it like
That's
instantly.
amazing. I
And
love that.
it's been so weird. One time, my friend, he borrowed my car and he lost the keys to my car, and I was like, oh my gosh, like these are the only keys I have. And I was kind of like frazzled, like I was like, oh shit, I really need new keys. And then I was like, okay, and I just started breathing. I was like, hey angels, like where are my keys? I really need them. And it wasn't clear to me. Usually it's clear. Usually I'll be like, oh, they're upstairs, or I feel like they're here, or I feel this, or like it's really clear. But this time it wasn't clear. It just said, go take the recycling out. And I was like, okay, that's really weird. So I went to go take out the recycling, and they're literally in the most random spot, like behind the recycling bin, which I don't know, like
Incredible.
how the keys got there. We all looked outside a billion times, and I was like, oh my God, I found my keys. I remember I came inside, I was like jumping up and down because I'm like, this is so crazy. Like, what are the odds?
Yeah.
And so now I feel like just so confident going forward in life. I always have my like human days and moments as well, but when I feel really like lost or uncertain, I'm tapping back into the knowing that I'm protected, and my guides are here, my grandpa's here with me. I feel that's so beautiful and so special, and that we can
Yeah.
all like tap into that if we want to and if we allow it. It's just yeah, a lot of my life I spent in resistance to this type of stuff, because anytime I would share like silly, like, or they're not silly, but anytime I'd share like, oh, I saw a spirit or I saw this, I was kind of like brushed off as like, oh, you're being crazy. Oh, don't say that, like whatever, and blah blah blah. And um, I'm really just stepping back into my power of like, no, this is my reality. There's so much more to this world than what we can physically see. Like, animals already know this. Plants, nature, they all feel this energy that's around us, and I think we all have the power to tap into that. It's only how much resistance we have to it. And if we're able to, you know, allow that to melt and really just allow whatever to happen. And I think everyone has this power to speak to their guides and their angels. And I think it's really, really useful,
That's
especially if you lose your
incredible.
keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A friend of
So,
mine who I did a podcast with as well, he had a car accident and a woman witnessed the accident, but she later told him down the track that she witnessed the angel that saved his life. And
yeah.
it's such a beautiful thing. And she was explaining to him, you can talk to them. And he's like, no, don't be silly. Like, you're crazy, lady. But she's like, no, 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 seriously, next time, don't bow down. Don't, you're not a slave to them. Stand up, look at the sky and speak to the sky and really open your heart. And he's like, in 5 minutes when she's gone, you best believe I was talking to the sky. And I really, really love that. And so I love talking to people
Yeah.
like this because on my journey, I'm learning more about me. I'm opening up to my intuitive side. And funny enough, I am listening to that voice. And so it really clicked in me when you said you were about to jump, and this voice was just like, no, no.
Oh, yeah.
I really believe it's important that we should start to listen to that voice as to protect yourself. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I really love that you shared your story. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, and yeah, I watched that podcast you were referring to last night actually. And I was
Yeah.
like, the part where he said like there's an angel between him and the lady. I was like, wow. And
Yeah.
that just made me feel good as well. Again, just being like, again, confirmation. Like, this is so, we live in such a magical world. And of course, we just need to be more open-minded. So it's really nice to just feel more free and liberated in sharing this as well. And yeah, I really appreciate it.
If my viewers would like to reach out to you, would you be happy for me to link your Facebook or Instagram or socials for them to contact you?
Sure, yeah. My Instagram, I love connecting with new people over Instagram. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll link all those details below for you. Before we end the podcast, is there a positive takeaway you could share with the viewers from your experience?
Um, yeah, just I guess as you were kind of saying as well, just listen to the voice and listen to, your inner knowing. We all have this like inner guidance system, and a lot of times we're just brushing it off. But yeah, don't be scared of listening to yourself, and don't be scared of dying, because it's honestly going to be like really peaceful. And yeah, that's kind of my takeaway. It's like it's impacted my life in the most beautiful way. Just feeling more safe in this world, in this body, and just yeah.
Embrace the new you. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much for sharing your story, and yeah, hope to keep in touch with you.
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much, Natalie. It's fantastic.
Awesome. All right, take care.
Talk soon. Have a good night.